We're going to break down 5 players that have to have a good season for Texas A&M to overachieve. And the number one guy, it's Nic Scourton.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as the playoffs have wound down. The sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel's hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something every day for everyone all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've got 5 players that have to play well this season for Texas A&M to overachieve. And as I said, the number one player on that list is Nic Scourton. Now, I wanted to add this caveat. Connor Wigman is not on this list because obviously he would be number one. That's kind of boring. Obviously, Connor Wigman has to play well for Texas A&M and have a good season. He is not on this list for that reason because it's pretty obvious. I wanted to go other directions. So Nic Scourton, he has been the talk of the offseason. He was the talk of SEC Media Days. Everybody wanted to hear the players' thoughts on Nic Scourton, Coach Elko's thoughts on Nic Scourton. He was great at Purdue. He's going to be great at Texas A&M. He's a really, really good football player. I think he's going to be a first-round pick in the NFL draft. The question is, can he do what he did last season at Purdue this season at Texas A&M in the SEC? That is what this is all going to come down to. I believe that he won't have any issue taking that step from, the Big Ten to the SEC because, once again, while the SEC is the best conference in college football, the Big Ten is not far off. It's not as good as the SEC, but it's not far off. And trench play there is really good as well. So, like the play between the offensive and defensive line is really solid in the Big Ten. So, it's going to be a step for Scourton, but not this huge, massive step like he's never been done any of this before. So I think that, he's going to – a lot of attention is going to go to Nic Scourton. He's going to get double-teamed a lot. Something I talk about a lot, the best receivers in the NFL are the players that they're going to be double-teamed and they're still getting open on a, play-to-play, drive-to-drive, game-to-game basis. Those are the best receivers. The best pass rushers are the guys who can get through a double team, who can create pressure through a double team, who can get sacks through a double team. Aaron Donald does that all the time. That dude gets double teamed on every play. I mean, he sometimes gets quadruple teamed and he's getting sacks because he's that good. I think Nic Scourton is that good that he's going to be able to handle double teams and still get pressure. And if he can do that, remember, that means you got 2 offensive linemen on 1 defensive player. So hopefully that means another of your guys up front or guys in the front 7 or maybe someone coming off a blitz from the secondary is going to be able to get in the backfield. It just creates more opportunities for other players. So Nic Scourton has to have a good season. Does it mean he needs to have 13 sacks? No. If he has 8 sacks and he gets double teamed a ton, which creates other opportunities for Shamar Turner, Shamar Stewart, for Cassius Howell, whoever it is. If that happens, he's done his job and he's helped this football team. So that is why Nic Scourton can be so important. One of the ways Texas A&M is always going to have a positional advantage is on the defensive front. I think against opposing teams' offensive lines. That's how good I think the D-line is. So Nic Scourton bringing Texas A&M advantage will help this team win football games. He's got to get pressure, and if he gets double teamed, he's got to still get pressure, and hopefully that'll open doors for other players to get after the quarterback. The next guy I have on this list is Trey Zune. We talked about the offensive line on yesterday's episode of Locked On Aggies, as you everydayers know, but you got to understand and I've always break down offensive line play. You want to break down offensive line play a step further. The most important position on the field when it comes to offensive line is the left tackle if you have a right-handed quarterback, of course. And of course, that is the case here in Connor Wigman being a righty. So Trey Zune is your most important offensive lineman at left tackle. He's protecting the blind side. And, he's got to have a good season. If he's giving up pressures every single drive and Connor Wigman's taking the snap and 2 seconds later he's running for his life, he's like a deer in headlights, that's a problem. Can't happen. Connor Wigman cannot be running for his life every game. He cannot be running for his life on a play-to-play basis. He has got to be able to have some time. And one of the most important players that is going to be to giving him time is Trey Zune. He's got to make sure that nobody's beating him off that edge quickly. Nobody's getting in the backfield super quickly. You've got to give Connor Wigman at least 3, 4, or 5 seconds to make a decision and make a quality throw downfield to one of his receivers. So if Trey Zune is able to protect Connor Wigman's blind side, it's going to be huge for this Texas A&M football team. It's going to be huge for this offense being able to move the football, this offense being able to stay on the field. If he isn't able to protect Connor Wigman's blind side, this football team's in trouble, and it's going to be really hard to move the ball on a consistent basis. The next name I have here is Noah Thomas. I'm now all in on Noah Thomas taking over as kind of the alpha dog in this wide receiver room. And if he's going to do that, he's got to be able to get open consistently. He's got to be able to get the ball, get downfield and get open. He's got to be able to catch touchdowns. He's got to be able to high point the football. He's got to be able to make big plays. He's got to make people miss with the ball in his hands. He's got to do all that. And the coaching staff seems really excited about Noah Thomas. They do. And I'm really excited about Noah Thomas. I think he's going to have a really, really good season. I think that he could be the guy that gets close to 1,000 yards. I think he could be the guy that gets close to 8 to 10 touchdowns. He has that upside in him, and I think he has a great connection with Connor Wigman. So I'm really excited to see what he's able to do this year because, once again, I think his upside is through the roof. He's such a talented player, and we haven't seen him be able to fully stay healthy and fully stay on the field and fully show us that. I think this is the year, especially if this offensive line is able to give Connor Wigman time. And once again, Connor Wigman has a season that I think many others anticipate him having. The next player I have here is Terry York. He's going to be the guy calling the shots. He's going to be talking a lot. He's the guy that has to make sure, he'll probably be the captain of this defense. I mean, in all honesty, because he's a captain of this football team. All we've heard all offseason is how great of a person, how great of a player Connor Wigman is. Connor Wigman. Well, yes, Connor Wigman, but Terry York is. And this is going to be his opportunity to have a huge season. I think he's going to have to help stop the run. He's going to have to get pressure on the quarterback. He's going to have to be what Cooper was last year. Edgerrin Cooper's gone. He's with the Packers now. Somebody's going to have to fill in that role, and I think that Terry York can do that. I think he's a great football player with an upside absolutely through the roof. So we've got to see that play out. We've got to see York have a good season. We all think he can do it. I believe he can do it, but he's got to get out there and prove he can do it. If Terry York is able to have this really, really big season where he does a lot well and he, takes that next step from freshman to sophomore that we all anticipate him taking, I think that it's going to be huge for this Texas A&M defense. So, yeah, I think one of the players when it comes to importance for the season as a whole and for the team overachieving, it's Terry York. He's got to have a really good season, but I think we all believe he is more than capable of doing just that. I'm going to talk about another player in the secondary, and we're going to run through some mailbag questions. We got some fun ones. We're going to talk about all that coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But I got to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much, I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. NFL is coming up. Obviously, college football. If you like Texas A&M's win total, it's at 8.5. If you think they hit that over, head over to FanDuel. If you think the Texans or the Cowboys are going to have a good year, head on over to FanDuel and bet the over on there. Or if you're a Texans fan and you don't like the Cowboys, bet the over on the Texans and the under on the Cowboys, or vice versa if it's the other way around. So you can do all that on FanDuel. Head over to FanDuel and start making the most out of your money. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball and the Locked On Podcast Network. So the last player I have on this list when it comes to having being vitally important to the season for Texas A&M is Bryce Anderson. I think he's kind of going to be the quarterback of that Texas A&M secondary. I think that he is going to have a really, really good season. I think that he's back at his natural position. He's back at safety. He's talked about how much he's enjoying this. He's talked about how good it feels to be home, be back where he feels comfortable. And I think that's going to lead to him having a good year. And I mean, he's going to be a ball hawk back there. He's going to have to make sure that he does not let any big plays happen. He's got to be, back there watching the football, watching the quarterback's eyes, watching what's happening around them, and preventing big plays. We saw Texas A&M secondary get absolutely killed last year with big plays. We can't have a ton of big plays being given up every year. So what that means is Bryce Anderson needs to do a good job of making sure that he doesn't let the explosive plays happen, whether that's him being verbal and talking to his the other corners, whether that is him getting out there and breaking up a pass, picking off a ball, whatever it is. Texas A&M cannot let the big plays happen this year. And I think that if Bryce Anderson is able to limit the long touchdowns and the 50, 60, 40, whatever yard plays, is going to help make this defense take that step from what it was last year to a really good defense to an excellent defense this season. So, we talked about Trey Zune and the offensive line, that being a question mark. The other question mark on this roster is the secondary. So Bryce Anderson needs to do everything in his power to make sure that this secondary is better than it was last year, and we see a lot of improvement. So I'm really anxious to see how that works itself out there. I've got some mailbag questions to answer today. And the first one, some of these come in via Twitter/X messages to me. Some come in via comments on the show. So once again, if you want to ask a question to be answered on the show, I try and do it during the season every Friday. DM me on Twitter, DM me on X, or leave a comment in the YouTube comment section, and I will answer those as well. But so first one was, what do I think is going to be the toughest road environment Texas A&M plays in this season? And I'll tell you, there's some good ones. There's some really good traditions. There's some really good, there's some really just flat out fun environments on this schedule for the Aggies. And I look at this, and the first one, you got Sandstorm in South Carolina. You got the War Eagle down there in Auburn. You've got the Cowbells at Mississippi State. You've got the Gator Chomp in Florida. You've got some really solid environments that the Aggies are going to have to walk into this season. I think that of all of those, the two most challenging are Florida and Auburn. And we're not talking about talent. We're not talking about who's the better football team, which it sounds like we are because, I've obviously talked about those being the two most challenging road games for the Aggies this year. But that's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about here is when it comes to just flat out environment. And I think that Auburn is the tougher environment than Florida. I want to look up capacity. Because I want to know here we go. I think that Florida Stadium's a little bigger than Auburn's. Am I right or wrong? Oh, that's hilarious. It's pretty much the exact same. Florida holds 88,548. Auburn Stadium holds 88,043. So there's like a 505 person difference. No, that's funny. So it's closer than you think. And obviously it's nowhere near Kyle Field. But this is interesting because I would probably give the environment. I think that the toughest environment is of those two is Auburn. It's just a tough place to, and it's more just because the fans are always in it there. You can't get them to be quiet. So I think that the toughest environment the Aggies play in this season is when they go to Auburn toward the tail end of the season. My next question is what is Cassius Howell's role going to be and how many sacks is he going to have this year? He came in from Bowling Green, a guy who got a lot of sacks. And I think that he's going to come to Texas A&M. I think he's going to play a significant role. I don't think he's going to be out there as a starter, but I think he's going to play 30-something snaps, per game. And I think that he's going to get after the quarterback. I think he's going to be getting in the quarterback's grill all game long. And he's going to be, when they put Cassius Howell in, it's going to be one of those pin your ears back and go get the quarterback, go get him, go get after him. I think that's kind of going to be his role there. So, I'm really kind of anxious to see how many sacks that turns into, because like I said, I do believe that's going to end up being his role for the Aggies this season. I think he's going to have 5 sacks. I do. I think he could have somewhere in that 4 to 6 sack range, because I think, once again, he's an edge rusher. He is out there to get after the quarterback. That's his only job. It is to, okay, I got to go get the quarterback. That's all he's trying to do. Obviously, you got to maintain gaps and make sure nobody runs around in the run game. But once it's a pass, go get him. That's your job. Make sure it doesn't escape. There's obviously other roles. But the point is, 98% of your job is going to get the quarterback. So, I think he's going to have a big role, and I'm really excited to see what that looks like. My next question here, the fun one, that's just flat out, what is the game this season I'm most excited about? I think saying the Texas game would be kind of a cop-out, because obviously it kind of be like the list I did of the players with the most importance to this team. It'd be like if I said, Connor Rigman number 1, because obviously Connor Rigman's the most important player when it comes to this team. I think, and this is going to sound boring too, but I think it's this game against Notre Dame. Obviously, it's the start of college football. But, man, a game like this to get the season kicked off, ladies and gentlemen, are you kidding me? That is the best way I can think of to get a season started. I can't wait. It's going to be a fun game between two really good football teams in the best environment in college football with a massive capacity, a sold-out crowd. College game day is going to be in town. I just cannot wait for that football game, and I know y'all are right there with me. So the next question I have here is, will a Texas A&M running back rush for 1,000 yards this season? I think yes, I do. I think looking at the numbers that Coach Klein had last season with his running game at Kansas State, I don't think that Texas A&M is going to have any issue having a 1,000-yard rusher this year. I think it's going to be Ruben Owens, but I also think that it's going to be last year, it was kind of like more of a 60-40 split, maybe 70-30 between the two backs. I think this year you could see it be closer to where Le'Veon Moss and Ruben Owens are both really, really close to 1,000 rushing yards. I still lean Ruben Owens, as I've said on this show multiple times, as y'all know, but I think it's going to be closer than many imagine. I do. I think it's going to be a tight race, and I'm kind of excited to see who ends up doing it. But yes, I do believe one of these two running backs is going to rush for 1,000 yards, and I believe it's going to be Ruben Owens. My last question is a fun one. This is not a Texas A&M football one. Someone just asked me who's my favorite music artists. My favorite music artist currently is Cody Johnson. Love Cody Johnson. I also really like Flatland Cavalry. It's a smaller band. I don't know if y'all have heard of Flatland Cavalry. Where are they from? Let me look that up. But I really like that band. Y'all need to check them out. Are they Texas? I don't know. Let's see. Doesn't say. Oh, they are. They're from Lubbock. So yes, y'all might have heard of Flatland Cavalry. I love them. I think they're great. I did not know they were a Texas band. But they're really good. I'm going to go see them in concert here in a few weeks, actually. Those are my two Cody Johnson's not a band, but those are the two artists I listen to a lot right now. Someone has that, thought I'd share it. We need to talk about why the Aggies have to stay healthy. We're going to talk about that coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But I got to tell you about our friends over at Game Time. As I always say about Game Time, it is the only place I am ever going to buy a ticket to anything ever in my entire life. It is the best app. It is so easy to use. I absolutely love how easy it is to use this app. I love the prices, and I love the feature that it shows you where you're going to be sitting before you buy your ticket. That's great to me because, once again, if I'm going to a concert, if I'm going to a football, basketball, baseball game, whatever, I want to sit in the best seat for the best price. And you can personally judge what that means to you with that, the ability to look around and see your seat. I love that feature. I think it's great. I love Game Time. You got to go check out the Game Time app. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. So I wanted to have a short little conversation. We were going to have it yesterday, but then I got carried away yapping about other stuff, so I thought we'd have it today. But, we've seen some important injuries. The running back over at Texas is done for the year. The left tackle over at Notre Dame. And the reason, first of all, hate it for those young men. Hate it. That I talked about that when I talked about the Notre Dame tackle. Nothing worse than working your behind off all offseason to get ready to go for the season, and then a couple weeks before it starts having a season-ending injury. It's exactly what happened to Donovan Green last year. Although, if I remember right, I think Donovan Green's injury actually happened a little bit closer than these to the season. I think it was like 2 weeks before, but doesn't matter. Obviously, you hate it for these players. Wish them speedy recoveries. Hope they're back on the field healthy soon and good to go next year. But I think that the key here, and it's not, I can say it, doesn't mean it's going to happen, but Texas A&M has got to stay healthy. Nothing can kill you more. Oh, that hurt. I banged my elbow. Nothing can kill a team more than if you lose important players right before the season starts. It is absolutely just awful losing starters, losing players that you anticipate being out there for a lot of snaps a couple weeks before the season starts. So what that means, and we're not just talking like ACL tears and terrible injuries like that, like what happened to Donovan Green. I'm talking about anything. I don't want to have any sore hamstrings. You want to be healthy going into the season. When you start having players, bang up hamstrings and ankles and calves, and they miss a few weeks, that is when things get really, really problematic. So, I'm really, really hopeful this team's able to stay healthy this year and nothing happens like what happened last year with Donovan Green before the season starts. You got to keep your players healthy and ready to rock and roll for the start of the season. This is just the worst possible. There's never a good time to lose a player, but there's never a worse time than a few weeks before the season starts. So the Aggies have got to stay healthy over these next 3 weeks. That's going to do it for this week here at Locked On Aggies. Thank y'all so much for being here every single day. I really, really appreciate it. Hope everybody has an outstanding weekend, and we will see y'all on Monday right here at Locked On Aggies.